billionaire fakes sleep to test Black Maid's kid. What happened next haunts me forever. The mansion loomed under the silver glow of a full moon, its sprawling dark structure casting long shadows that twisted across the perfectly manicured lawn. Inside, walls were lined with priceless art, whispering tales of wealth that not even its owners could comprehend. But amidst this display of opulence, a sinister game was about to unfold, one that blurred the lines of morality and tore at the fabric of trust. A billionaire, known for his eccentricity and questionable ethics, decided that today was the day he would put everything on the line. He faked sleep, heart racing, eyes barely closed, as he dared to test the loyalty of his Black Maid's child. The crack of the front door opened just a sliver, the sound barely slicing through the silence. That child, a boy no older than 10, crept in a whisper of a kid, his tiny bare feet padding softly against the marble floor. Those innocent dark eyes darted around, searching, sensing something was off. The air was thick, it felt like it could suffocate you. Little did he know that his every move was being scrutinized from behind closed eyelids, an experiment in morality orchestrated by a man who reveled in the thrill of control. Every beat of the boy's heart echoed in the cavernous halls, a reminder of the fear that nestled in his chest. As the minutes stretched, discomfort thickened the air like fog. The boy's breathing grew shallow, punctuated only by the distant sound of the grandfather clock ticking, louder with each second, almost mocking the tension in the room. He tiptoed further, drawn to the glimmering objects that surrounded him, trophies of a life he'd only seen from afar. Suddenly, a loud crash interrupted the stillness, and the boy froze, heart pounding like a drum. Had he tripped over something? Or was the billionaire moments away from revealing his true, monstrous self? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With bated breath, the boy remained perfectly still, the world outside fading away as he focused on his surroundings. However, fear morphed into something else, curiosity igniting the question burning in his mind: what if he could uncover the truth behind this twisted game? Would he dare to push boundaries that no one else would even consider? Just as he decided to inch closer, the billionaire's eyes snapped open, and a smirk spread across his face as he whispered, "Now, let us see what you're really made of." An overwhelming dread clamped down on the boy's throat, entangling him in a web of uncertainty. In that chilling moment, a sense of impending doom slithered into the room, leaving both the child and the reader gasping for answers. What would happen next? The smirk on the billionaire's face twisted further into a cruel grin, lighting up the dim room with an unsettling glimmer, as if he reveled in the power he held over the boy. The silence felt alive, pulsating, ready to snap like a taut string. The child's breath hitching in his throat echoed the rhythm of his racing heart, terror swirling in his gut. "What will you do now?" the billionaire taunted, his voice dripping with mockery. "Will you dare take what isn't yours?" In that moment, the boy's mind raced. He stared at the glistening objects around him, the ornate vases, the glimmering gold statues that loomed like sentinels of wealth and privilege. Each piece felt like a test, daring him to reach out and claim what he had never known but always wanted. But the stakes were perilous. Would a single touch seal his fate? The boy's hands trembled, the weight of the decisions pressing down on him like a heavy cloud. Fighting against the urge to run, he stepped further into the room, distancing himself from the door that represented escape. Anything could happen if he stayed. Fear crashed against the shore of his resolve, but curiosity pulled him deeper, like a moth drawn to a flame. "Do you want something?" the billionaire continued, feigning sleepiness. "Nothing is stopping you, after all." The question hung in the air, beckoning but dangerous. The boy's thoughts spiraled. He could turn around, flee back to the warmth of his mother's embrace, away from this twisted charade. Or he could confront the man facing him, risk it all to challenge his authority. The prospect was terrifying yet exhilarating. The billionaire's eyes widened, watching intently, whispering promises hidden beneath his casual demeanor. "What's the matter? Scared? Or perhaps you just need a little incentive?" Before the child could process the words, the billionaire's finger flicked toward a nearby trophy, magnificent and shining, yet its allure was caged by an unseen trap. It sparkled like a distant star, inviting, beckoning, radiating both beauty and danger. The boy could feel it gnawing at his insides, yet just as he took a shaky step forward, every instinct surfaced like a warning siren. The reflection in the billionaire's eyes darkened, transforming curiosity into something more chilling. It was an appetite, a thirst for chaos, as if he would savor any moment of discomfort, any hesitation from the boy. "Why not take a little step closer?" the billionaire urged, feigning a tone of disinterest, yet his posture was that of a predator ready to pounce. Suddenly, the boy felt an invisible chain dragging at his ankles, a mix of fear and a desire for freedom from his mundane world. He steadied himself, trying to block out the raging storm of emotions clawing at him. This was no longer just about curiosity, it was a savage battle for his own spirit, the need to prove himself against a man who toyed with lives for sport. In the next breath, the boy launched himself forward, reaching for the gold statue that now felt like a beacon pulling him in, ignoring the voice that screamed at him to stop. Time stretched, and the room distorted around him, the billionaire's eyes growing wide in both shock and anticipation, but sometimes, the very act of reaching for something can lead to consequences far darker than one ever imagines. A loud crash, an unseen figure barreled through the doorway, disrupting the tension. The house started to tremble, shaking the floor beneath their feet. The boy froze, and the billionaire turned, suddenly alert, a shadow crossing his face. "Who dares to interrupt?" he spat, fury igniting in his voice. The boy stood paralyzed, heart pounding in his chest, caught in a devastating web. The figures of authority and chaos collided in that moment, threatening to unravel everything. Because what waited beyond that door could change everything he thought he knew. Would he be able to escape unscathed, or was he about to plunge into a storm far worse than himself? The room vibrated with tension, the boy's heart thrumming in time with the shaking walls. The billionaire narrowed his eyes, the cruelty in his expression morphing into cold calculation. With the trophy almost within reach, he now seemed more intrigued than angry. "Do you know what happens when you challenge the natural order?" he hissed, his voice low and menacing. In that instant, the boy felt a sudden chill, as if the air had shifted to frost. The crashing sound from the doorway stole his attention, and from the shadows emerged a figure. Clad in dark clothes, the intruder looked both menacing and familiar. It was his older brother, Oliver, a boy he had always idolized, tough and brave, yet somehow grounded. "Ollie?" the boy gasped, both relief and fear flooding through him like a tidal wave. He wanted to run into his brother's arms, to escape this nightmare, but the billionaire's gaze flickered with something darker, a mix of malice and amusement. "By all means, let us play," the billionaire proclaimed, a sickening grin crossing his face. Oliver stepped forward, his jaw tight, embodying a protective energy. "Get away from him, you monster!" he shouted, and the boy saw it, the strength in his brother's stance, the way he stood his ground despite the towering man before him. The billionaire's smile widened, delighting in this unexpected twist. "Ah, the big brother arrives to save the day. How quaint! But tell me, what does a hero do when faced with a true villain?" The boy's mind raced. Would Oliver be able to save him? Would he get hurt, too? The uncertainty coiled like a snake around his spine. Every fiber in him screamed for action, but the thoughts tangled in his mind like knotted string. "Just back away, Ollie," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the increasingly frantic heartbeat of the room. "Let us just leave." Oliver shook his head, never taking his eyes off the billionaire. "Not a chance," he replied, determination lacing his tone. "We're not leaving without you." With those words, he shifted his weight, ready to pounce. But the billionaire, true to form, seemed entirely unbothered. Instead, he slid his gaze to the glimmering trophy that had seduced the boy moments before. "You want this, don't you?" he taunted. "This little piece of gold could be yours. Or—" his voice dropped, a cruel whisper. "You could leave empty-handed, knowing your brother failed to save you." The boy's instincts roared. On one side, freedom. On the other, a chance at something more, a dangerous gamble that weighed heavy on his spirit. Then the earth shook again, a tremor that signaled chaos was looming ever closer. Oliver lunged, his arm outstretched toward the boy, gripping his shoulder with fierce urgency. "Don't you dare touch him, you sick bastard!" he spat. But it was too late. The billionaire waved his hand dismissively, and the ground swallowed Oliver's voice, drowning it in an ominous echo. Everything crashed down, lights flickering, shadows twisting. The plush decor of the room seemed to melt into grotesque shapes, and suddenly, it was impossible to tell friend from foe. The boy stood frozen, torn between running away and reaching for what glittered before him, caught in a nightmare that spiraled out of control. Could the bond of brotherhood withstand the darkness that threatened to envelop them? Or would greed and fear tear them apart, leaving only despair in its wake? As the earthquake of fear drowned out all logic, a twist of fate awaited that none of them could foresee. Would it bring ruin or salvation? The room erupted into chaos as the ground heaved violently beneath them. The boy stumbled, his breath hitching as he watched the lights flash in erratic, pulsating patterns. Oliver's grip on his shoulder tightened, grounding him amidst the swirling panic. "Stay close," his brother barked, urgency dripping from every word. A low growl emanated from the billionaire, his presence unnervingly calm as if he thrived on the tumult around them. "Do you feel it?" The billionaire's voice sliced through the disarray, rich with wicked glee. "The shift in power? The very universe aligning to watch your feeble attempts at heroism?" The boy looked around, heart hammering in his chest. Shapes morphed in the twilight, twisted reflections of real threats. A part of him longed to reach for the trophy, to transform fear into glory. But as he glanced at Oliver, the resolve in his brother's eyes swept that temptation aside. "Forget what he says," Oliver urged, urgency blending into desperation. "We need to get out now." The boy hesitated, the gleaming trophy still calling to him. It glistened defiantly, promising a world of possibility wrapped in success. But at what cost? He stole a glance at his brother, who was poised to fight. The tension in the air settled heavily, and the choice coiled tightly around him. Screams from the hallway punctured the moment, jarring the boy back to reality. "We have to move," he cried, feeling the frantic thrum of his heartbeat in his ears as he reached for Oliver's hand. In that instant, he chose family over greed, but the billionaire scoffed, his laughter echoing like thunder. "Fleeing now, are we? How delightful. But I wonder, can you outrun destiny?" He snapped his fingers, and darkness pooled in the corners like smoke. Thick tendrils slithered out, creeping forward toward them. "Run!" Oliver yelled, urgency coursing through his voice like electricity. With a sudden surge of adrenaline, the boy yanked his brother's hand, and they sprinted together. The world felt shaky, the ground trembling under their feet while chaotic shadows lunged towards them, hungry to drag them back. As they barreled forward, the once opulent decor of the room seemed to twist and collapse inward. Hints of dropped elegance lay strewn around, furniture splintering, priceless art bending unnaturally. Each room they passed became a terrifying echo chamber of what was lost, a violent backdrop to their escape. The boy glanced back just once, locking eyes with the billionaire. The man's face twisted in a surreal mix of rage and amusement. "You can't escape what you've already invited in," he shouted, the cruel glee cracking the facade of his calm. Fear surged through the boy, coursing through his veins like ice. Didn't the billionaire know they hadn't invited anything? They were simply caught in a storm, helpless but fighting to break free. Every footfall thundered, and for a moment the boy felt a glimmer of hope as they neared a door leading outside. Fresh air lay just beyond, and with it, the promise of freedom. Just as he reached for the handle, the room shook violently again, a final warning. It seemed that a piercing scream echoed from somewhere deep within the sprawling mansion, and dread seeped through his resolve. The sound twisted a knot in his stomach, a grim reminder that this was far from over. "Oliver!" the boy shouted, panic rising. "What was that?" "We can't think about that now," Oliver replied urgently, pushing the door open. Fresh air flooded in, but as they took their first step toward escape, the ground shuddered again. The darkness writhed. Shocking new shadows emerged from the threshold, a bizarre amalgamation of figures, pulling them back into the clamoring chaos of the mansion. With breathless determination, the boy's mind raced. Could they really escape? The pressure weighed heavily, but there was a flicker of light, a possible way out. But then the world shifted one last time, throwing them both off balance. The boy stumbled, uncertainty clawing at him as he teetered on the edge of the unknown, painfully aware of their last dwindling moments. Would they fall into despair or grasp onto salvation hidden in the light of an open door? This was no longer a simple escape, it was a race against an unknown fate that lay waiting just beyond their reach. The moment wavered, stretching into an eternity as the boy felt his footing slip. He glanced desperately at Oliver, whose expression had turned into a mix of determination and raw fear. They were standing at the edge of an abyss, one that threatened to swallow them whole if they lingered any longer. "Hold on!" Oliver shouted, yanking the boy back just as the shadows reached for them. The tendrils of darkness twisted and coiled, brushing against their legs like icy fingers, desperate to pull them into the void. Without thinking, the boy picked up his feet and sprinted once more, Oliver hot on his heels. Every step felt like running through molasses, the weight of uncertainty dragging at their heels. They dashed into the corridor, heartbeats pounding like drums in their chests. Each room they passed told a story of terror: a shattered vase, a chair toppled on its side, the silence echoing back muffled cries. It was as if the mansion itself had turned against them, painting a picture of dread layered with despair. "Where's the exit?" the boy gasped, eyes wide, scanning for any hint of salvation amid the omnipresent gloom. With every second, the sense of looming dread tightened its grip. "The library. We'll cut through there." Oliver pointed toward a heavy mahogany door that groaned ominously as they approached, a reluctant guardian to their escape. As they flung the door open, a cacophony of books fell from the shelves, cascading like falling stars, each one an echo of lost pages and untold stories. The boys dodged the tumbling tomes, Oliver leading them further inside, his voice cutting through the chaos in a nearly panicked urgency. "We'll find a back way out." But before he could finish his thought, the billionaire's voice boomed from the shadows. "Ah, the sweet sounds of despair. You think you can run, but you're merely prolonging the inevitable." The boy's stomach twisted at the sound, eyes darting wildly. "We're not staying for your games," he shouted, though fear laced his voice like a bitter aftertaste. Suddenly, the air shifted, the temperature dropping, a frigid chill wrapping around them like a shroud. The shadows seemed to pulse, thickening as if alive and aware, hungry for their fear. Oliver grabbed the boy's arm, pulling him toward a narrow path between two towering bookcases. "Go!" Oliver urged, and they darted through, the darkness brushing against their backs as if the mansion itself sought to reclaim them. The bookshelf became a labyrinth, the walls closing in with each trepidatious stride. "Keep moving," Oliver insisted, but even as they pressed on, they could hear the billionaire's laughter trailing them, echoing through the stacks like a haunting melody. "You'll never be rid of me." Then, they stumbled into a dimly lit room. The scent of old leather and wood enveloped them while faint light flickered from a window. The boy caught a glimpse of something reflecting in the distant shadows, a glint of silver. His heart sank. It was the trophy, gleaming from atop a pedestal, pulsating with an otherworldly allure. "Is this really happening?" the boy murmured, temptation clawing at his resolve. He could feel the trophy's pull, an intimate whisper promising power, victory, everything he had ever wanted. But Oliver's hand on his shoulder reminded him of everything he stood to lose. "Look, we don't have time for this," Oliver snapped, fear fracturing his resolve. "We need to choose. Family or whatever that is. Our lives are worth more than a trophy." The boy felt torn, the shadows swirling closer, hot breaths on his neck. Desperation fed the chaos around them, time slipped through their fingers like sand. The mansion shuddered once more, a low rumble shaking the very foundations. "Make your choice," came the billionaire's taunt, enveloping them in a suffocating wave. As the boy fought against the temptation, the tension escalated, a storm of emotion crashing around them. With the fate of their lives hanging in the balance, he glanced at Oliver, his brother's eyes fierce with courage, piercing through the haze of darkness. He knew the moment had come. Would they flee or succumb to the lure of the unknown? A haunting scream rippled through the air once again, chilling him to the bone. And suddenly, it all clicked, an unshakable truth dawning on him, but before he could voice it, the darkness surged forth ready to claim them both. What would emerge victorious, the brothers' bond or the insatiable hunger of the mansion? The dark tide rushed at them, an unyielding force. "Oliver!" the boy shouted, panic clawing at his throat. With a swift tug, they broke free from the grasp of shadows and dove between two more rows of bookcases, the wood creaking ominously as though the mansion shuddered at their presence. They landed hard, the impact knocking the breath from their lungs. "Stay down," Oliver whispered, his voice barely above a breath, but the tension in it was palpable. The shadows swirled around them, dark whispers filling the air, sentiments of failure and despair echoing through the corridors. It felt as if the very essence of the mansion itself was alive, thrumming with malice. The boy struggled to reconcile the weight of the trophy's lure crashing into the urgency of survival. "We can't just leave it," he gasped, eyes darting toward the sparkling silver trophy that beckoned them from the corner of his vision. "It's a trap," Oliver urged, his grip tight around his brother's wrist. "We have to find a way out. And no, we can't ignore it. What if it holds enough?" Oliver's voice cracked. "We're not doing this. Not now. Not ever. We find our way out." The air thickened with tension as the echoes of the billionaire's laughter drifted into the room like roiling smoke. "And here I thought you boys had bravery. How naive of you." Suddenly, the shelf behind them shifted, books hurling themselves to the floor. In a panic, they scrambled to their feet. The library was shifting, walls contracting. The boy felt a sickening twist deep within. This wasn't just physical, this was psychological warfare. "Run!" Oliver yelled. They burst from their hiding place, darting toward the nearest exit as books rained like fire. There was no time to look back and no thought to spare for the stories lost in the chaos. The trophy's promise fell away with each thundering heartbeat that echoed in their ears. They barreled through the door, slamming it shut behind them, breathless. The hallway beyond was longer and darker than ever before. Shadows loomed bigger, their claws clawed at the corners of their vision. "Which way?" the boy gasped, heart hammering in his chest. Oliver pointed ahead. "Down that hall. It'll lead us to the staircase." Together, they plunged deeper into the dark, the floor creaking menacingly as if the wood itself protested their passing. The air felt heavier, laden with oppression. As they tore through the silence, dread wrapped itself around the boy like chains. He glanced at Oliver, who was gritting his teeth, fire igniting in his eyes. "We'll get through this," he said, as if convincing himself as much as the boy. "Just trust me." Then they saw it, the staircase loomed ahead, an ascent into the unknown. The shadows seemed to shrink back from its light. Yet, temptation whispered again, laced in uncertainty. The trophy called like a siren song, but was it worth the price? "Oliver," the boy said, a sudden thought striking him hard. "What if we don't have to leave it? What if we can use it?" "No. That's exactly what he wants." Oliver shouted, but there was doubt lingering in his voice. The tension built again, the air hot with unspoken fears and broken trust. With a pounding pulse and a racing mind, the boys stared at the staircase, then at the shadows flickering at their backs, claws grasping desperately in their wake. Was this flight or fight? Were they abandoning hope, or were they dodging a death sentence? Together? He whispered. Always, Oliver replied, and with a shared glance, they bolted toward freedom, toward the staircase, but the final doorway, the mansion itself, loomed ahead, a final battleground between the strength of brotherhood and the dark seduction of the unknown. And just before they reached the stairs, an unearthly scream echoed through the halls, their mother's voice. They froze, terror threading through their veins. Had the mansion taken more than just their strength? What awaited them at the top? With breaths held tight, they pressed forward, hearts racing, but at what cost? The air thickened around them as they stood frozen, hearts pounding, caught in the grip of terror. Oliver turned, eyes wide, scanning the shadows that seemed to pulse with life. "We have to go," he urged, "now." But the boy hesitated, feeling an unshakable pull toward the echoing scream. It was haunting, echoing off the walls like a sinister melody, and the more he thought about their mother, the more he felt its chilling grip. "What if it's a trick?" he whispered, fear quaking his voice. "Whatever it is, we can't take the chance," Oliver insisted, pulling him toward the staircase. They sprinted upward, each step heavy with dread. The house shuddered beneath them as they ascended, wooden beams creaking like the mournful cries of lost souls. As they reached the landing, they were met with a long corridor lined with portraits. Each painting watched them, eyes seeming to glimmer in the dim light. The boy couldn't help but glance at the faces that framed their escape. Were these people once trapped here, too? Had they stared down the same dark path and lost everything? "Focus!" Oliver hissed, breaking the boy's reverie. "Keep moving." They dashed down the corridor, the air growing colder, more suffocating. The boys reached for the next door, fingers trembling over the doorknob. As Oliver twisted the handle, an icy wind gusted from within. The door creaked open, revealing a vast, shadow-laden room that felt like a tomb. In the center stood an enormous mirror, framed in gold that shimmered ominously. It looked alive, not just reflecting, but pulsating with a faint glow, as if it held untold secrets inside. The mirror called to them both, an alluring promise of answers, maybe even a glimpse of their mother. "What if?" the boy began, but Oliver interrupted, his face resolute. "No, we can't risk it. We need to keep moving." But the boy was already drawn in. He stepped toward the mirror, heart racing with a mix of fear and curiosity. "What if she's in there?" he whispered, barely able to pull his gaze away. "Get away from it!" Oliver shouted, rushing to grab his brother's arm. "It's trying to trap you." Suddenly, the glass rippled like water. The boy's breath caught in his throat as a figure began to emerge. A silhouette came into focus, long hair framing a delicate face, terrified eyes wide with desperation. "Help me!" the figure cried, stretching out a hand through the glass, desperate. "Mom!" the boy gasped, caught between hope and horror. "Stay back!" Oliver shouted, but the boy was already moving closer, drawn like a moth to a flame. As he reached out to touch the mirror's surface, the ghastly cold shot through his fingertips as if he were plunging into ice water. "Do not touch it!" Oliver screamed, panic filling the air, but it was too late. The moment their fingertips grazed the mirror, darkness erupted around them. The room twisted, reality warping as screams filled their ears. His mother's voice mingled with the sinister laughter that echoed from the shadows. They stumbled back, heartbeats sinking as terror ignited their instincts. "What have you done?" Oliver yelled, fear and anger boiling over. They could feel the house closing in on them, the flickering images in the mirror now melding into a whirlwind of chaos. Oliver, fighting his way through the darkness, gripped his brother tight. "We have to break the spell." In that frantic moment, the boy was hit with clarity. The trophy. he shouted. It must be connected. The power of the house, it's feeding on our fears. But before Oliver could respond, a dreadful wail erupted from the depths of the mansion, drowning them in pure anguish. The floors trembled, shadows clawing at their ankles. With an overwhelming rush, they raced back to the staircase, but their escape was blocked by figures now emerging from the shadows, all watching, waiting. Would they become just like the portraits, forever trapped in the mansion's grip? The boy's mind raced, battling between the mirror's haunting image and the need to survive. Did they dare confront the trophy again, the beacon of temptation? As the murmurs grew louder, a single thought echoed in his mind: they needed to choose. With the walls closing in, would he dare risk everything for a chance to rescue their mother, or find another way to escape the blur of nightmares? Together, they faced the relentless darkness, determination igniting their fear. But would that be enough to break the chains of despair? In the chilling silence that followed, a single question hung in the air: what awaited them in this forgotten mansion, and would they find the strength to survive? The shadows shifted, coiling around them like living tendrils, drawing closer with every heartbeat. The figures emerging from the darkness were gaunt, eyes hollow, faces pale as bones. Oliver and the boy shared a frightened glance as the unnerving whispers crept toward them, words they couldn't quite understand, yet somehow felt all too familiar, laced with sorrow and loss. "Remember us," a voice, as cold as the grave, beckoned. "Run," Oliver urged, pulling his brother along. They darted down the corridor, desperation pumping through their veins. Every creak of the floorboards beneath them felt like the house itself was alive, sensing their fear, eager to trap them within its murky depths. "We can't let it take us," the boy gasped, struggling to keep pace. Oliver didn't respond, his breath coming in ragged puffs. He pushed forward, his gaze darting back. The shadows pursued them, relentless in their hunger. The trophy, a shining beacon in Oliver's mind, felt like a compass guiding them toward an unknown destiny, yet every step he took fed into the growing dread. "What if it wants us to go back?" the boy implored, clutching his brother's sleeve tightly. Oliver hesitated. Could the trophy, once a symbol of victory, now hold the key to their liberation? "We need answers. If we confront our fears, maybe we can win this," he decided, brushing off his own fear. He didn't believe a word but forced his feet to move toward the living room where the trophy lay, gleaming ominously on its pedestal. "I hear it. I hear her," the boy yelled, halting suddenly. His eyes filled with terror. "Mom! Focus. Don't think about that," Oliver urged, grabbing his brother again and propelling him forward. "We're close." At last, they reached the living room, but it felt like stepping into another dimension. The air was thick with malice, and the trophy, glinting with malevolence, beckoned them closer. The once celebrated symbol of triumph now seemed like a siren, its power tinged with danger. The boy faltered, his expression twisting into fright. "What if it wants something from us? That's the chance we have to take," Oliver shouted, the fear in his voice wars with the desperation clawing at his soul. "We can't go back. We have to face it." The boy nodded, but the doubt lingered in his eyes as they approached the trove. A sudden chill swept through the room, and icy fingers curling around their throats, squeezing in warning. As they neared the trophy, the echoes of laughter filled the air, each guffaw tinged with sadness and regret. It seemed to call them, wrapping around their fears, pulling them closer into the dark void. Oliver reached out, hand trembling toward the trophy. The air shimmered and warped around it, showing flickers of their past, memories of warmth mixing with shadowed fears. The depths of the trophy revealed flashes of their mother's laughter, but then, it twisted into screams that filled the room. "Stop. We can't," the boy cried, pulling back. "It's a trap." Before Oliver could respond, the reflective surface of the trophy erupted, swirling into a portal of darkness. Faces emerged from its depths, lost souls pleading for help, and among them, he could almost see their mother, reaching out in terror. "Oliver! We can help her. The boy urged, stepping forward, caught in the grip of that unfathomable attachment. No. It's too risky. Oliver shouted, feeling the walls pulse around them. The shadows grew restless, their whispers morphing into urgent cries, demanding to be heard. Don't you want to know what happened to her? The boy challenged, conviction growing in his voice. What if we can save her? Every fiber of Oliver's being screamed to turn back. But as he gazed into the depths of the trophy, uncertainty gnawed at him. If they didn't grasp this chance, would they regret it for eternity? The darkness encroached, a wave of cold fury threatening to swallow them whole. With a final glance at his brother, Oliver felt it a moment of clarity. Together, they could break the bonds of despair, or end up just like the tortured souls trapped by the hunger of the house. Time slowed to a crawl as breaths mingled in the silence. The next move was critical. They had to choose, to risk everything for the truth or shield themselves from the horrors that lay ahead. As the shadows surged forward, each eerie whisper promising nothing but doom, they understood that the fateful decision loomed ever closer. Could they trust what awaited them, or would it dissolve into madness once again? With hearts pounding and the darkness closing in, the question loomed like a specter. Were they ready to face the truth hidden in the shadows of the trophy, or would they be consumed by the house's dark legacy forever? The portal pulsated like a heartbeat, dark tendrils leaping toward them, tempting yet terrifying. Oliver could feel the breeze from another realm brushing against his skin, mingling with the fear clenching around his chest. He didn't want to look away, yet every instinct screamed at him to flee. Oliver. The boy's voice was strained, a quaver of terror evident in every syllable. What? Oliver shot back, forcing urgency into his tone despite the dread coursing through his veins. What if we actually can help her? We owe her that much. A sudden silence penetrated the chaos. The whispers faded, giving way to the sound of their own breaths, fast and erratic. The only thing louder than their fear was the image of their mother, suspended in that inky void. Her face shimmered, illuminating fragments of emotion, love, sorrow, and desperation. The boy stepped closer, almost entranced. I feel her, Ollie. She's here. Something in his wide eyes glimmered with hope, but that hope felt fragile, like a candle flickering in a storm. No. Listen. Oliver grabbed his brother's arm, the reality of their situation crashing over him. It's a trick. We can't trust it. We don't even know what's on the other side. But the moment was slipping. The shadows, some horrific dance in the corners of their vision, grew restless. They were becoming more erratic, nudging them to move. Oliver could practically hear the house groan, urging them to take that fateful step forward. Let's just try, the boy whispered, his resolve faltering. He was staring at the portal as if it granted miracles. No. Oliver said it louder this time, frustration simmering into anger. I can't lose you. I can't lose anyone again. He thought about their past, the good memories drowned in loss and sorrow. But standing still seemed a worse fate. That cave of darkness beckoned, revealing glimpses of truth, flashing glimmers of the past that felt so close. He could barely breathe, the ice clamping around him tighter. Mom, the boy murmured, eyes glazed. He was on the cusp of crossing the threshold, and the eyes of the souls trapped within the trophy glimmered with a hunger Oliver could only comprehend as madness. In that moment of hesitation and fear, the wall of shadows whispered promises. Free her, join her, all will be well. The voices twisted, intertwining almost seductively with his thoughts. Oliver clenched his fists. No. This isn't what we want. He surged forward, grasping his brother's shoulders. We need to stay together. Whatever this is, it's trying to pull us apart. As he looked into his brother's eyes, softened by uncertainty, something inside him clicked. They had each other, that was their truth. Their bond was stronger than any dark entity demanding their attention. Don't give in. he pleaded, watching the shadows recede slightly in response to his profound will. We are not their puppets. The boy blinked as if waking from a trance. The resolve was slowly returning, the fear dissipating as he stepped back, their bond grounding him in reality. Suddenly, a howl erupted from the void, a vengeful scream that reverberated throughout the room, a cacophony of rage and despair. Right then, the trophy surged. The darkness shattered like glass as it began to crumble into shadows. We have to go. Oliver shouted, adrenaline surging through him, pushing them away from the collapsing void of trapped souls. They raced back toward the corridor, the house rumbling with fury, shadows clawing at their backs. As they turned the corner, Oliver glanced back to see the portal shatter entirely. Faces of agony and sorrow faded into the darkness, the trophy-esque gleam dimming into nothingness, a final scream echoing before the chill evaporated into silence. Breathless, they stumbled through the hallway, hearts pounding in unison. What did we just see? The boy whispered, anxiety lacing his voice. I don't know, Oliver replied, dread pooling back into his chest, but I think we opened something we should have never touched. They turned toward the staircase, the house around them still echoing with whispers, unsettled and impatient. The air thickened, tension thrumming, yet they could hear it now, much clearer, the ghostly remnants of laughter, low and mocking. What remained unsaid was a feeling growing ever stronger. A new darkness was blooming just beneath the surface, and their past might not be the only thing haunting them. Let us get out of here, Oliver said, leading the charge back into the heart of the house. But as they reached the front door, a chilling realization dawned. What if the true terror hadn't been the darkness behind them, but that which waited for them just outside? The door creaked open, revealing an unsettling landscape beyond, a world shrouded in the same darkness but far more twisted, beckoning them with a familiar mournful call. Were they ready to confront it, or had they merely awakened something worse? As the door swung open, a chill gust of wind rushed in, wrapping the boys in an unsettling shroud. The outside world was a graveyard of twisted trees and fading shadows, unrecognizable from the safety of the sprawling mansion they thought they were escaping. The air vibrated with an unsettling energy, as if the very landscape was alive, awaiting their next move. Oliver's grip tightened on the boy's shoulder, resolve slipping away as dread washed over them. We can't, he murmured, glancing back at the yawning maw of the mansion. It's a trap. The thought twisted in his gut, nails grazing the surface of his heart. Everything was darker than before, and the echoes of their mother's voice mingled with distant whispers. But then the boy stepped forward, peering into the darkness surrounding them. We have to try. We can't let this place win. His voice trembled, yet defiance sparked within him. For a fleeting moment, he thought he saw a flicker of light beyond the shadows, a possible path leading back to hope, to safety. Mom! He called out, the words spilling from his lips like a prayer. The shadows shivered, reacting to the sound, rousing a shift in the air, and for the briefest second, he felt her presence hovering near. It was intoxicating, giving him strength amid the looming grief that threatened to swallow him, but Oliver tugged him back with urgency. Don't! You can't fall for it again. The insistent whispers of the mansion clawed at their minds, urging them toward despair as the shadows drew closer. Time was of the essence, they had to move before the darkness closed in, before it devoured all the light inside them. With a determination that echoed like cannon fire, they sprinted from the threshold, past the twisted landscape of the estate, hearts in sync as they ran toward the glimmer of hope barely visible in the distance. Together, they forged onward, the shadows chasing them, eager to reclaim their lost prize. The world outside felt foreign yet freeing as they ran, but the weight of their escape dragged at them, a reminder that the battle was far from over. Images of the trophy and the shadowy figures haunted their thoughts, each footstep a reminder of what they had witnessed, what they had almost lost. They pushed on, breathless, the ground beneath their feet rumbling ominously. Keep going! Oliver shouted as they neared the edge of the estate. The looming darkness crackled with malice behind them, trailing their every step. Suddenly, the boy stumbled, falling to the ground, fear spiking as his heart thundered in time with the chaos around him. Get up! Oliver yelled, a fierce urgency layering his voice. You're stronger than this. The boy's breath came hard as he looked back to see the shadows forming a massive wall, ready to crush everything in their path. I can't. He cried, despair curling tightly around his throat. But as the darkness encroached, Oliver's voice cut through the turmoil. Yes, you can. Remember what we fought for, what we almost lost. Fight back. In that moment, as panic threatened to drown him, the boy felt a surge of adrenaline that sprang from deep inside, a flicker of hope reigniting his strength. He surged upward, determination erupting from his core. Together. He shouted, hand finding Oliver's, and they bolted forward, breaking through the dividing shadows between them and hope. With every step, they felt the weight of the dark retreat, growing weaker as light poured into the space before them, illuminating paths they had nearly lost sight of. We can do this. They pushed through, hearts roaring in defiance, refusing to let fear snuff out their flame. As they plunged outside, the shadows dissipated behind them, swirling into wisps of smoke beneath the glow of sunlight. They stumbled onto a path lined with trees, their branches bathed in golden light, stretching toward the horizon. Every breath they took smelled of freedom, sweeter than honey. Exhausted but exhilarated, they gazed into each other's eyes and felt an overwhelming rush of relief. We did it. The boy gasped, his voice thick with emotion. But then an uneasy silence enveloped them, a stark reminder the countdown wasn't finished yet. The mansion stood in the distance, dark and imposing, its windows hollow and watching. The laughter echoed once again, a haunting reminder of what they had just escaped. The boy's heart sank a little more as he turned to the mansion. Fear might still linger, but this time, it was different. They had each other, a bond forged through fire, tested through shadows. We can't forget, he murmured, looking back one last time, feeling the pull of the mansion's lingering power. Oliver nodded with fierce loyalty. We learned what we needed to. And now we can move forward. Together, they walked away from the shadows into an uncertain world beyond. Whatever lay ahead would never match the horrors they faced, and as long as they stood together, they knew they could weather anything. The horizon stretched infinitely before them, a collage of uncharted territory and the promise of a new beginning. Freedom wasn't just a distant dream anymore. It was their reality, unfolding step by step, and they would embrace it with open arms. With renewed vigor, they stepped into the light, ready to carve paths toward new lives, free from the weight of fear. The mansion receded behind them, a whisper of the darkness left behind in the haunt of their memories. And as they disappeared into the sunlit future waiting before them, they felt an unshakable truth: their bond was their greatest weapon, hope, their most resounding victory. The shadows might linger, but the light would always return, leading them forward into a life reclaiming everything they had once lost. So, don't let darkness or fear define your journey. Embrace the moments of resilience and the bonds that guide us through. Choose hope. Hold tight to your loved ones. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive story. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and spread the word. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us build this community together.